my thing was the internet was just kind of like a thing. More people were having websites. And I was like, well, why can't I be a one-stop shop for those people who aren't the giant corporation? Remember? Because I kind of knew how to do it and put these pieces together on a smaller scale. So I was like, well, why can't I just do that for like regular people and be we can do A, P, Q, and R, or we can do A to Z. Like we can do every single aspect of your event, or we can just do the food and the booze and the photographer and, whatever you want.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast. Sean and Lacey with you, just as we are each and every week. This week's episode is going to be super power-packed because we have a lot of really interesting things to talk about.
It's going to be a party.
So I want to talk about parties, but we have the real life Beth Dutton joining us. This is like amazing. Who would have thought that we would have pulled this off? We didn't even know that we were pulling this off. One of the things that I'm super excited about is, we teach this concept of always having something to invite people to. And a lot of times what happens is in the contextual understanding of that turns into some sort of an event.
Yes.
So we have a lot of our listeners that struggle because they're like, yeah, but now I have to put on an event. So we went out and got a real legit event expert who's going to be with us. Her name is Marley Majcher. Let's bring her in. Marley, welcome to the None of Your Business podcast.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I can answer all those questions about, oh my gosh, now what?
Well, we love to begin the podcast with the same questions for all of our guests. When we get to the part where people are checking you out on social media and your website, etc. I mean, you're doing these massive events for massive names, personalities, celebrities, people, corporations, companies. How does one get into that? And of course, go ahead and tell us about how you end up being the real life Beth Dutton as well.
Well, all right. So like this podcast needs to be 4 hours, but I'm going to try to make it like super short. So I grew up in Pasadena, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. And somehow I got myself into Georgetown, and nobody knows how, but I got my business degree from Georgetown. But while I was at Georgetown, I had a class for one of my speaking business classes, and I had to do a speech on what I knew more about than anybody else. And at Georgetown, that was like absolutely nothing, like, because it was a miracle that I got in. So, but I had just come back. It was my junior year. I just come back from France. I'd been in cooking school in Paris, and I ran into my professor on the street. And like, I'm old enough that you had to develop your film in those days. And so I was like heading down to develop my film. I run into her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in this class and blah, blah, blah. And I love it. I'm so excited about my talk. And when I didn't know what to do, my mom had said, hey, listen, why don't you just do it on French cooking? Like, there's no way they're going to know, these kids are going to know more about that. So I was like, okay. So I tell this professor, I'm like, and I'm going to do it on French cooking. And first time, like, hand to God, I said, I ever thought of this. And I said, and I have an interview with the chef from 1789. Well, 1789 is this very fancy restaurant in DC, and I did not have an interview with that chef. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite restaurant. And woo. And I'm just like, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? So me, who goes home now, I'm in tears by the time I get back to my roommates, and I'm like, I'm going to get kicked out of school because I'm lying. I don't have these references. Like, I don't have anything to support this. And my roommate says, no worries. There's a new chef there, and he just came from New York. He won't know any differently, like that he can say no to something like this. I'll totally hook you up. And I said, all I need to do is meet the guy, and so that I can not be lying on my like fact. And she said, no problem. So I go over there to meet him, and it's like in the bowels of it's like in a townhouse practically in Georgetown. And it's like, it's way down in the basement. And I go in and I take one look at him, and I'm like, oh, hi, I'm here, for this interview. And I take one look at him, and I decide that I need to marry him. And I was like, okay, this is all going very quickly from one thing of like, oh, I have this interview to now I'm going to marry him. And so the whole time I'm doing the interview, and mind you, he's 20 years older than I am. I've like not even, I think maybe he said hello. I don't even know that. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to marry him and do the interview. And so I start picking up on a couple things. And a couple things that I realized were two things. One, I'm fluent in Spanish, but he was not. And everybody in there was speaking Spanish. The second thing was that they had souffles on the menu. And at like souffles are really difficult typically to have on a restaurant menu because they can be, too hard or dry or whatever. So I was like, oh, talking about how my summer of souffles, which maybe we had made a couple, but anyway, that whole thing turned into a summer of souffles. So I'm doing the interview and then I'm trying to come up with like a hook of how I'm going to get back to this situation. And so he's like, and then I say, listen, could I maybe like shadow you for another day? Or, like I need more research for this paper or something. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I think he thought I wasn't going to show up. So then the next time I come back a couple days later, and I'm in like full hair and makeup to do to what I'm telling myself is a real shift. And I was like, this is going to be my shift. And I was like, well, can I just come back again? So anyway, of course he thought it was never going to go anywhere, but I ended up working 3 days a week. I'd get out of class at 2:30 and I'd work 3:30 to 11:30, 3 days a week for a year. And he never asked me out. And I was like, well, so much for my goal setting and closing capabilities. But I was like, fine. So then the summer before my senior year, I went to Normandy to go to cooking school. And I like plotted the whole summer how I was going to like quit and ruin his life. Because by now, right, I'm his translator, I'm his souffle chef. I pick up every shift anybody ever wants because I'm like, oh my gosh, it'll be time with him. So I'm like, this is how I'm going to ruin his life when I go back in the summer. So my senior year, I went back and I said, hey, listen, I'm gonna have this big school schedule and whatever. I was quitting. I knew I was quitting because of my ego, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Anyway, did you want to have dinner? And so I was like, oh, like all I had to do was quit, and that handled it. So then we ended up having dinner. I got engaged the month after graduation. Really, I'm telling you, I'm getting into the event planning business. So got engaged the month after graduation, got into the restaurant business. That's a whole other freaking story. And then we moved back to California, opened the restaurant, then started a catering company, a banquet operation, all that. And that's how like my whole food situation started. And I mean, there was like a lot of pitfalls along the road and, a couple other husbands and whatever. So I don't know like where you want to take it, but I'm just gonna kind of that's my tale. Do you want me now to segue to Beth Dutton and my?
Wait. So,
I mean, you guys asked the question, so I'm just trying to make sure I like fulfill my end here. So if you want to jump into Beth,
I feel like we went on a journey. We went on a journey, and I really actually thoroughly enjoyed it. But I gotta know. So okay, so
you not. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed where you ended up. The end of the journey.
Yeah, now I'm very happy with my rainbow puffy journey, but it was not so colorful. Let's put it that way.
So obviously that engagement maybe didn't go all the way through. We had a couple other husbands, but we moved from restaurant industry to party planner. And I know there's a lot of bridging that happens there through catering.
Actually, it came together actually. That makes sense.
Tell us though, how do you fall into party planning? And what I want to know, because I love the idea of collaboration, and I want to know, so did you decide to house everything under your one business, or do you partner and collaborate with other people, and how did that all happen?
Great question. Okay, so like for the girl who has ADHD, that was about 4 questions, and I'm gonna just try to like focus, so you might have to remind me of the question. Okay, but so it segues. So the one big umbrella was, okay, it was the food business. At least that helps, right? It was the food and service business, and it wasn't like packaged product. So there you go. So to a certain extent, probably the biggest bridge was from the restaurant business, and then we had 2 banquet rooms, not banquet rooms exactly, but like parts in the restaurant where we could do like, rehearsal dinners and stuff like that. So when I started planning those, that is where you kind of get into the event planning, right? And then even though like we were the venue and provided the food, we could make recommendations at that point for like who to use for flowers, et cetera. And then of course you want to make the client happy. So you just do the best you can as far as, recommending like the linen company, that kind of thing. But then when we took over the banquet operation, that I really cut my teeth on that also, because now we can potentially do a lot of stuff in-house, right? And then, so while the marriage did go through, and then, then like when we were, I mean, that's a whole freaking other situation, but then when the marriage, no longer went through, and I then have this bad skiing accident and can't be running the restaurant, because now I'm in, like, on top of it, as if I weren't handicapped enough, I'm in like a full leg brace. And my dad, thank God we owned the land where the restaurant was. And so my dad is like, listen, this is ridiculous. Like, you love doing the events, and we keep getting offered to like partner up, right, for this restaurant. So why don't you do that? That's what you want to do. And I was like, no, because my ego, the whole whatever. But then we did. It's fortunately the best thing I ever did in my whole life. It actually, that segues to how I can be Beth Dutton in a minute. But so then we partnered up with a restaurant. The chef and I split. We're still like best of friends, but we split. Now, mind you, this is like just now, probably like 1999. So beginning of 2000. Well, then remember, the only people that had event planners were huge corporations, like planning huge events, or if you were like a big wedding planner, right? And so my thing was, the internet was just kind of like a thing. More people were having websites. And I was like, well, why can't I be a one-stop shop for those people who aren't the giant corporation? Remember, because I kind of knew how to do it and put these pieces together on a smaller scale. So I was like, well, why can't I just do that for like regular people and be the, we can do A, P, Q, and R, or we can do A to Z. Like, we can do every single aspect of your event, or we can just do the food and the booze and the photographer and, whatever you want. So I kind of hung my shingle out like that. And it worked. People were like, oh, I already knew you from the restaurant business. I already know you can throw a great party. You have like good flair, that kind of stuff. But I was at a very bad, like, low point in my life, obviously. Like, here I am, very high on, my giant, fabulous idea of getting married to this guy I met after 1 second. Now I'm getting divorced, and I have a 1-year-old, and my leg is in a cast. So I was like, well, what's like the biggest, I needed a name for my company. And I was like, well, what's the biggest thing I can freaking come up with? And I'm like, the party goddess, like, whatever. Who cares at that point? And then I go introduce, my boyfriend at the time introduces me at this industry event, and he's like, oh yeah, and this is the party goddess. And I remember like LA just being so, LA was like, the what? The who? And I was just like, I will crush you one day when I am out of bed and out of my pajamas. I will bury you. And so I kind of end up doing that, right? So I decided, like, I've got to differentiate myself. There's a million event planners. How am I going to do that? I decided I needed celebrity clients. Now I'm going to go find me a celebrity, and which I did. And then I just kind of kept building that up. And then once I got celebrity clients, it's hilarious, because then, it's game over. All of a sudden you must be like the smartest, most genius person ever. Because if you can do a celebrity event, wow, you must be amazing. But the whole point is, it's a marketing strategy, right? And once I realized that business is so much, you have to be good at what you do, but it's, a marketing strategy too. So that was kind of my differentiation. But I completely forgot the other parts of your question. Or did I answer?
That's okay.
That's
Tell
good.
tell us who was the first celebrity client. How did you land them?
Well, okay, so how I landed is actually like a great business tip, because you can use it not just for celebrities, but like if for everybody's small business, right? Whether you're in anywhere in the world, doesn't matter if you're in a small town. You don't need like, Kevin Costner to live in your town to have a quote celebrity. You start thinking of it as like the people of influence, like the people that everybody listens to. Like, it could be the mayor, it could be the TV anchor, it could be whoever everybody's like the family that's been there forever, or it's just people that they're like, oh wow, they use them. Okay, so that's how you start doing it. And so I knew that I wouldn't be able to get an A-list celebrity probably like tomorrow. So I started telling my friends about my goals. I'm super big on, when I have my goals, I try to say what they are, so that hopefully I can get help from God, the universe, whoever is interested. So I started telling my friends. My one friend said, hey, listen, I have this friend who is a publicist for fashion brands and stuff, and she works a lot with celebrities. Maybe she could help you. So I called her and I told her what I was trying to do. And she said, yeah, like, we send, the equivalent of gift baskets and stuff to celebrities so that they'll wear the clothes and get photographed. And she said, what I could do is I could probably like include a gift certificate for you with those, baskets, and see if any of them bite. And I was like, okay. So we created the most gorgeous, and the gift certificate doesn't even do it justice. There were these Dupioni silk, gorgeous wrapped things. And we sent these gift certificates to a ton of celebrities. Now, remember, people think that celebrities are rich and they spend tons of money and all that, and they do. But celebrities are just like the rest of us with, whatever, one of the top 10 words in the world is free. They love that. So I sent them this gift certificate, and obviously they could check me out. So they could check my website and all that stuff. And one of my very first ones was this singer, like Leona Lewis. And we started doing you kind of get one, and then you get another one. But one of my really, really early ones was Britney Spears. And I remember being in my office. I can think exactly where I was sitting. And my assistant was like, okay, yes, just a second. And she was like, Jamie Spears is on the phone. I'm she's like, well, I don't know what to do. What do you, he's calling you. And I was just like, well, now what do I do? I was like, yeah. Spears. I don't know why I thought I would be better if I had a deeper voice. He knew he was calling a girl, but I was just like, yes, how can I help you, kind of thing. And then I was like, well, you fake it till you make it, I guess. I was just like, well, just talk to him like anything else. I mean, what do you see? How's Brit? How are the boys? I was like, okay, what's the date? How many people? Were you thinking of having this? It turns out it was going to be at one of the Real Housewives houses. It was the biggest cluster, from my internal brain perspective. But then it just kind of went from there. Then I would just I've got to go do the walkthrough, and you've got to go. Her manager at the time was super famous. He was all over TMZ at that point, that they were dating, that they were so I got there and I'm like, hey, and I was like, well, he is hot. I get it. So my whole world of kind of paying attention to all this. I don't know if I was between husbands then or not, but I just was like, just take the notes, girl, and close your mouth. Just take the notes. You went to Georgetown, you can freaking take notes about if you're going to have whatever. We're going to have chicken fingers. I mean, it was a very basic menu. And so I was just taking all the notes. And then it's kind of before you know it, you're airborne. And then the next one calls. And then, we ended up doing a lot for Pierce Brosnan, who's the nicest person on the planet. And then Sofia Vergara. And then it's then before I knew it, I was like, damn, I'm so good. This celebrity thing ain't no problem, So talk about going from the deepest, darkest depression to, yep, Brittany, how you doing? I'm good. Yep, we can help you Saturday. So
I love the attitude of I'm just going to proclaim that I am the expert. I'm the party goddess. That's who I am. That's what I do. I'm going to show them. We talk about that all the time in with our coaching clients and our members. So you just got to wake up one day and decide what it is that you do and that you're the best at it, right? Because if you can figure that out, everything else will happen for you.
Yes. I mean, I still to this day cut my magazines out for my vision boards. I have them in a book and stuff, but I'm like, you have got this. Every single password I have is some version of skinny billionaire, you are I'm just why not? So you kind of forget that then people come over and they're like, what's the Wi-Fi password? I'm like, skinny billionaire, capital S with $2 signs, but whatever. I just feel I just will have a little extra reinforcement. So
I love it. I love it.
I guess see what's on my obituary if I made it. I mean, I'm never skinny enough. That's for blasting.
well, being in LA, we get that. Tell us about the transition to becoming Beth Dutton. So you're on a roll, the Party Goddess. Well, by the way, thepartygoddess.com. That still's the website. Everybody go check Marley out, thepartygoddess.com. Let's talk a little bit about this Beth Dutton dream of yours. You're becoming a rancher now?
Yeah. So I have always had the whole kind of Martha Stewart thing in me. I hate to say it that way because it's been much grittier always. I always loved to garden. I always had animals as a kid. And then last year I woke up and was I just feel something is telling me to go to San Ynez, which is north of Santa Barbara County, or it's in Santa Barbara County. And I don't really know why San Ynez. I don't think I'd been there. Now I remember I had been like to make a pit stop at the restroom on the way up north, but whatever, it's beside the point. So I text my friend, who's my real estate agent. I was like, hey, listen, when are you back in town? I feel like I need to go to San Ynez. And she's like, oh, okay, why? And I was like, I feel like I need to buy a ranch. I've been having these dreams. So she said, okay. So she's like as whacked as I am, right? So she comes down, and so then I said, well, let's go to San Ynez. I said, we're not going to come home until we have an offer on the plate on the thing. So she's like, okay, well, like, what are we looking for? And I said, well, I put some stuff on Redfin, like my kind of usual herky jerky way of doing things. So then we go up there, and she has some more properties, and then sure enough, she's like, okay, Marley, like, the sun is going down. What are we doing? And I was like, let's put an offer in on this one. So we got in a bidding war, and I was like, oh, hell no. Like it was going to be insane. And then my second choice, which actually now I'm so happy, we ended up getting, and like it had fallen out of escrow, totally crazy. So 20 acres has just dirt on it. I mean, not anymore does it have just dirt. And I just was like, I'm going to be a rancher. And now I'm trying to get a patent for this product that involves wool, regarding fire prevention. And so that's all part of this journey. And I'm, getting ready to purchase my sheep, and the house is getting built. It's like all out of shipping containers, and it's got a green roof. Like I made it through Santa Barbara County, which is the most notoriously difficult process, but I think they were just like, just see what this clown does. So yeah, with my shipping container house with the green roof and gray water and like alpacas and all that stuff. So that's
Okay.
what I'm doing, I guess.
I got to know this because I'm just like listening to your story, and you have such an amazing story, and you have such a big, vibrant personality. And I'm thinking, how, like, if we go all the way back in those moments that you said were dark for you, like in the pajamas, in the bed, what were you telling yourself, or how did you get out? Because there's a lot of people that go through those things, a divorce with who they thought was the love of their life,
Yes.
you changing a career path, making a transition. And it's like, sometimes you just don't know how to get out of bed. Like, what was it for you? Because that's a big leap from where you were to where you are now, Beth.
And we're only talking about one of those. We're not
Right,
talking
one.
about like, I mean, there, as he say, we could have volumes. There have been many. Well, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you the God's honest truth. A couple things. One, my dad has always said to me, when it gets tough and in business or whatever, you put your head down and work a little longer. You work a little harder, you work a little longer, you make one more phone call, you type one more contract, you stay at it a little. He's like, it doesn't matter if you want to, it doesn't matter if you feel like it, you just do it a little, and eventually your luck will turn, which is totally true. The second thing though is that I'm Catholic and have, you like probably a lot of us, you go through all kinds of stuff with your faith, but I realized, because I would get in these really big depths of depression, because I mean, here I'm Catholic and I'm getting divorced, and here I got my family into the restaurant business. I mean, it was not a pretty situation. So I would just say like a million rosaries, no joke. I have the rosary app. Sometimes I'm like, it's not even going badly right now. I'm just going to put the app on at night while I go to sleep. Just maybe Jesus is going to hear the Hail Mary and Our Fathers, and I'm going to get a little extra credit. I don't know. And I would always just make myself get up and do some kind of exercise. And when I say, like, sometimes I would do it in my pajamas. Like sometimes I would just go for a walk, and I'd be like, just go for 10 minutes, just go for 10 minutes. You'll be okay. Because the exercise seemed to help me. And then the other thing too, is I literally never gave up on vision boards. Like I'm a totally visual person. And I would just keep ripping out magazines of like celebrities that I wanted to work with, of like a house that I wanted to build, of no matter what. And somehow, I guess my brain, so mixed up or something, just kept finding a little bit to just like a little bit. Okay, we can get you out of bed. Okay, this will do it. And I just kept trying to change what I think about. And then I started this thing where I would say 5 things every morning, 5 things for which I was grateful, 5 things I would give to God, and then 5 affirmations. And the affirmations were exactly at that time when I was like, so I would just say those 5 things every day. And I was like, this is the biggest crock of ever. But I was like, well, this, it's worked before for me to manifest things. So I'd say that. But then when I would do my 5 things for which I was grateful, I remember I'd go on these walks and it was like, I am not grateful for anything. Like there's nothing. I'm looking around and I'd be like, fine, I'm grateful for the green of that leaf. And I have said so many times, I'm grateful for the green of that leaf. Like you can't even imagine, because that is really all I was grateful for. And it's amazing. After a while, you trick yourself, or God gives up and says, I can't do this anymore. Like she's taking all my time. Let's lift her out of the pit. I don't know. But that is, I would like literally be like, hello, like there's no way is or any of these things, happening. But I would always try to do some kind of exercise. I would always just be saying my prayers, and I would always be like doing my goals and my vision board, whether I freaking felt like it or not. Now, granted, I would go kind of on a 2-day run of like Ben and Jerry's down the front, not change the shirt, but a lot of times that had to do it between husbands or whatever, between like it was.
Those are good tips, though. I love it.
Well, I have to shift gears just slightly because I have to circle back to the middle of the story here, because we had talked about a lot of the people that listen to the show struggle with events.
Yep.
Yeah.
Give us some advice. I mean, you're obviously a master, so you've forgotten more about putting on an event than most of us even know about doing it. But it still is a struggle, like, even like from a birthday party, an anniversary party, but from a business perspective, right? In the corporate world, like I want to host a VIP event or I want to do a grand opening. Give us some tips. What are some things that you would say, listen, just don't forget these things and you'll be okay?
Okay. The most important thing I can say to, and I understand, believe me, that businesses have all kinds of different brands, right? I understand there's some that are out there, and I understand there's some that are really conservative. And I promise you, we've worked with both ends of the spectrum. So I'm not minimizing this. But what you have to realize, just like every aspect in business, it has to be different. Okay. You're like, duh. You have to, it has to be a party people are going to want to go to. It has to be a party people are going to be at, etc. One of the first ways to do that is with the invitation. So I know a lot of people are doing electronic invitations, which, okay. But number one, if you want to move the needle and you want to do some VIP party or whatever, I say send a real invitation that's creative. Like take the budget from something else, send the real invitation, because people just don't get paper invitations anymore. And they'll be like, oh, look at this. Guarantee you they will go to yours. If it's like a busy Saturday night or something, they'll go to yours versus anybody else. So that's number one. Number two, get out of your own head from thinking about, we're going to have like the tables that seat 10 people and we're going to have a DJ and we're going to have, like, think, what do you want to accomplish? Now that might sound very basic, but what do you want to accomplish? Are you trying to throw a thank you for your VIPs so that they feel like you so appreciate them? Or is it something for your VIPs so that they know you appreciate them, but it's post-pandemic and you just want everybody to have a good time and just feel good? Or is it you want them to know you appreciate them, but you've got a new product or service you're launching? And so then once you know what you want, every single thing about that event needs to play to that. So if you're launching a new product, let's say, or you're launching a new collab or whatever it is, you make it all about that. Can people test the product? Are you teasing it? Is the new product or the new app going to be in certain colors? Make the whole party just those colors, right? If I have one thing to say, please do not ever use a 66-inch or 72-inch round table with a tablecloth to the floor that's nylon or whatever. Like that's my biggest thing, to mix it up. Have different seating. Doesn't cost you any more to have stand-up cocktail tables, and even if they're just seated 36-inch rounds and some couches, like OMG, just mix it up, right? I mean, you can go to IKEA and get couches for the same price that you can rent them. So try to go from the perspective of, instead of like, we're going to have this long buffet and we're going to have chafing dishes. Frick the chafing dishes. Like have a food truck and a donut truck and do it outside, and it's a construction zone. Awesome. Then have it be a construction party with construction hats, and the guests, all their names are like vinyled on the front of it. Just take out everything you think you have to do and channel your clients having a rip roaring good time. And what would that be?
Mm.
And just keep, like, would it be pasta with a side of chicken and cream sauce? No, it would not ever. Okay, it would not. But could everything be on sticks? Could everything have a dip? Could everything, like, what could it be? Like, there are just so many things. So you can make it like, and just hit that theme home. So if the theme is a color, make it all about the color. If the theme is, if you know, make it about a play on words. Make it like, if something is really awful about your office, that it's 1980s mauve, don't try to redo your office. Invite them to an 80s party where they dress with their worst 80s outfit and you serve them TV dinners on a whatever, and like be like, this is us, because people love that. They go, oh my God, this was freaking great. Like, we did this event last year for the hoitiest, twittiest, I have to be careful what I say, but it was for club, and they are very, 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 and they're like, but they brought me in because they weren't selling out this event. So I was like, okay, but then they lost their mind when I proposed it. But guess what? We made it Mad Men. We had all these couches. We had literally the trays from the 1950s. So Mr. Billionaire and Mrs. Billionaire and Mr. Billionaire number 2 sat there with the ambrosia salad and the whole thing from the 1950s, and sat there with their TV tray on the couch. Like, and these people were on fire. They were like, this is crazy. I'm like, oh, hammered much. Thank goodness TMZ isn't here. But amazing. So when people say like, oh, you can't do that, or my people won't, it was like the 75-year-olds were the most ecstatic of all. But you got to go in and own it. Like, every single thing in there was all about that era. But I'm telling you, the TV trays on the things, I was like, who knew? That is the easiest blasted thing ever. You didn't even need tables. You just literally were like, okay. And everybody's like, this is so great.
That's fun.
I remember TV trays.
I do too. Okay, I have one other question, because this is where I feel like a lot of people get hung up when they're having events, is they get so caught up in the logistics of the event themselves. Like, yeah, you already know where I'm going with this. Even if they hire somebody like you, an event planner, people get so obsessed about every little detail that they don't have the opportunity to engage with their guests. So what advice would you have with the person throwing the event to make it the most successful?
Okay, the person throwing the event has to have a lieutenant who understands, this is the biggest thing, that they are the lieutenant. I cannot tell you many conversations like, oh yeah, so-and-so is going to be in charge, meaning my sister-in-law or whatever. And I'm like, okay, is your sister-in-law already seems buzzed, and it's 2 hours before the party. Does she, like people have to, they can't be a guest and in charge. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it has, I hate to say it, it has to be somebody on the payroll. And I'm not saying it has to be a huge company like mine, but it has to be somebody where you are like, this is your role. Yeah. Do you agree? Do you understand? I will be getting in the shower and unavailable at 4:00, from 4:00 to 6. You know what I mean? Because that's the problem, right? Is we all, now it's 5:20. I haven't gotten in the shower because, ding and dong over here haven't set up the sterno. And now I can't get in the shower. And then the doorbell rings. It's like, you have to play the whole thing backwards and have all the logistics, all the platters out, all the tables, all that kind of junk that you can even do a couple days before, have it done a couple days before. But somebody who knows they are in charge. And then, like, I'm sure you're surprised, like, to drink at my events. I mean, not my paid events, obviously. I'm like an event where I am a guest or where I'm throwing it. I mean, not like on the clock. Please, oh goodness. So
context.
Like, by the time this is done at 11 and the DJ is going to want the check and blah, 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 I'm going to be 16 martinis in. Okay. Yeah. Here's the tip for them. Here's this in the envelope here. Don't come find me. You come find me if you smell smoke, you see blood, or you see a bone protruding. A protrusion. I'm not interested. I want to see it, because those are my liability points. Past that, handle it.
Yeah.
right?
I love it.
That's great. I think
Tell
that's
people
important.
how they can contact you beyond the website. If people want to hire you, or maybe
Should
they
they
just want to,
dare?
maybe
Yeah.
they just want to chat with
Or
you,
just have a martini with you.
or maybe
Yay!
they're a
Available.
skinny billionaire. How do the skinny billionaires contact you?
Yeah, exactly. Or even the one of skinny billionaires. Okay. My favorite is that we're really trying to build up our Instagram. So I would love if they would go to Instagram at the Party Goddess and follow us, like, comment, say, hey, I heard you on the podcast. I knew what you meant when you said you're going to be drinking on the job, that you weren't, that kind of thing.
At the
Awesome.
Party Goddess. Make sure you check her out. Marley is is an awesome guest. I want to go to one
I
of
know,
your
if
parties.
your parties are even half as fun as your personality, like it's a win for sure.
Well, there's 911 is always there. Like somehow, it's like some clown fell and hit there, and I'm like, really? Didn't we do that last year? Like, God, do they have a wife that could kind of help a little? So yeah, it's always just a total clown show. Because by that point, I'm like, whatever. I don't even, at this point, it is what it is.
Yep.
So
Well, Marley, thank you so much for being with us. You absolutely killed it. Super entertaining, yet informative as well. I was telling Lacey too in one of your sections when you were giving us the tips on the party. I was like, yes, she definitely knows what she's talking about. Tons of fun, but of course knows what she's talking about. And best of luck with the ranch.
thank you.
Can't
Well,
wait
I'll
to
invite
see.
you guys to the ranch party. You guys can dress up as Beth and Kevin, whatever.
I
Who
love
knows?
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd
I
love
We
love
it.
shouldn't
Let's
be
stay
Beth
in
and Kevin.
touch.
That'd be weird.
Yeah.
Awkward. But
What's the other guy? Beth and what's his name? The other guy.
Rip. There's so
Rip.
many
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Oh my
There
God,
you
there's
go.
so many good ones. I mean,
I know.
make your own character up and be like, I'm the next.
Yeah.
You don't know this,
I'm
but
the
as
one
a
that was
debut.
playing golf on the ranch. Got it.
I love it.
All
Yeah.
right, everybody. This was super phenomenal. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Let's not even say it. We always say it every episode. I don't know how we top this next week. I'll just tell you, we don't. But you should tune in next week anyways, just because we'll be back and we'll have more information for you to help you to build your business, reach more people, make an even bigger impact, and to create the lifestyle of your dreams. You just might not laugh as much as you did this week, but it will still be good for you. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.